I locked my intruder in the house with me for hours. Hi, me, my sister, and my mom have been trying to make sense of this for the past couple of hours, and the facts get less comforting the more we compare our experiences of that night. So last Friday night, I, 17M, was home alone while my family, besides my sister, 21, who was at work, stayed in their cabin a few kilometers away. I'm used to staying home alone, as this exact scenario is very common in the summertime, especially while I'm working and can't travel from the cabin and back. I'm not usually jumpy or afraid while home alone anymore, used to the odd creaks and settling noises of our old house. I was especially comforted by the fact that my sister's dog was also in the house with me that night. And most noises could be attributed to him, and if anything were to happen he would act as a guard dog of sorts and alert me to anything odd. At the same time, however, he is the type of dog to bark at any noise or person walking past the door or windows, so I'm used to hearing him bark or growl at night. Even so, this past Friday the sound of his barks at nearly 12 a.m. were disconcerting, to say the least. Despite my comfort with staying home alone, I am still terrified of the premise of a break-in or some other uninvited human interaction at midnight. I let him bark for a few seconds, telling myself it was just someone walking past our glass door in the adjacent alleyway, and he would quiet down once they passed. Needless to say, that's not what happened. He kept barking and growling for a few moments too long, and I finally got out of bed, I sleep in the basement, and walked upstairs to check it out. As I'd suspected, he was standing alert at the glass door. I was comforted for a moment until I walked over, ready to close the curtains and go back to sleep, and saw the door open about 2 or 3 inches. I froze. I had let Bosco, the dog, out earlier that night, but I know I closed the door. I have never left this door open. I am a paranoid person with bad anxiety, especially concerning break-ins and the like, so I would never, home alone, forget to close the door. I am 100% certain, but at the time I didn't let myself think about these facts or even acknowledge that I could not have left the door open, because I knew it would send me into a spiral, possibly even an anxiety/panic attack if I didn't explain this away. I closed and locked the door, double-checking that it was certainly locked. Using the flashlight on my phone, the lights were all off. I looked around the entire second floor of my 3-floor house, including closets and other reasonable hiding spots, just to put my mind at ease, and upon finding nothing, went back downstairs to my room. As I was down there, trying to push away the fear, I could hear Bosco walking around on the floor that doubles as my bedroom's roof. I thought I was overthinking it when it started to sound like human footsteps accompanied by Bosco's footsteps. He walks around for about 10 minutes before I put in my earphones and talk myself down until I can fall asleep. At 2 a.m. that same night, my sister comes home from work. I woke up a few minutes before this to Bosco in the basement, which he never does. There's even a gate to stop him from getting to the basement, whining at my bedroom door. When I got up to let him out, my sister walked in, and we let him out the front door rather than the glass patio door, letting him in the same way. We talked for a while before I went back downstairs and my sister went to the bathroom. I forgot about the door, busy with work, for the next few days, and forgot to mention it to anyone until tonight. My sister and mom were home with me for a movie night while my dad and brother stay at the cabin. I remembered the door situation when we were picking out horror movies to watch. I was sharing it as a creepy, almost funny story before my sister spoke up, saying that, the same night, an hour or so after they got home, the door was open again, the same door that was locked from the inside, and not opened since. Earlier that night, my stomach dropped and I started shaking the second this was revealed. We first started trying to explain it away. Maybe she had let Bosco out and forgot to close it, until we both recalled that we'd used the front door. Then we were trying to justify a reason someone would break in to not steal anything, and proceed to stay for 2 hours before leaving. Ultimately, I realized that I quite possibly locked someone in the house with me, then forced them to hide upstairs while I searched the second level of our house. Then this hypothetical person would be trapped up there now, knowing that this house, that appears empty with the rest of my family gone and all the lights off, was not empty, and there was a dog who would bark if they showed themselves again, alerting me to their presence. Then, when I was in the basement and my sister was in the bathroom, they ran out the glass door, which is timed perfectly to when they found the door open once more, much wider than when I found it, as though they were only in a hurry on the way out. Perhaps they left it open the first time for a quick escape, or to stop the loud sound of it meeting the door frame. Either way, it ties together too perfectly for me to reasonably brush it off. I know it's unlikely, especially with nothing missing, but in this small town, there have been many reports of break-ins with nothing missing, vandalizing, or just breaking and enterings many times, so it's not as unlikely as it may be in a bigger city. I can't make sense of this, and I'm shaken up thinking of the possibility of someone being in my house while I was asleep, alone in the basement. There's a part of me that doesn't believe it, but I can't shake the too many coincidences that all tie together to make this as concerning as it is. Someone tried to open the door to our apartment when I was home alone. This is many years back, when I, 36/M, was still a young teen around 14 years old. I remember being done with homework and playing on the N64 in the living room. I lived in a somewhat small apartment which was technically a refurbished basement of the building. The front door started the living room, where the TV is located. The TV faced inward, so that meant I would be facing the door at all times whenever playing games. Anyway, when the front door moved, I noticed immediately. I muted the TV and crept towards the door, positioning myself right in front of it. The door started inching itself open, as if someone tried to push it open slowly. After a few seconds, I slammed the door shut and locked it. I heard a rustling noise and some jingling sounds. It sounded like either a dog shaking itself dry with some chains hitting each other or a person shaking a bag full of keys. I was ready to push back with all my 14-year-old might. Luckily, whoever was at the other end of the door stomped up the stairs and out the apartment main entrance. I don't know who that was or what they wanted, but I'm glad they didn't try to break in again. I feel quite lucky that nothing else came out of that, but it's still unnerving to think about. Someone stalked me and tried to break in when I was home alone, just heads up, so the whole thing happened back in summer 2016. For some context, my parents go on holidays quite often and I used to stay home alone for 2 weeks at the time to look after our dogs and take care of the garden in general. I've always been a bit of a scaredy cat due to my experiences with being harassed and followed home alone couple of times. My neighborhood was relatively new at the time, so the whole thing was surrounded by forests, and oftentimes you could come across some junkies lurking in the forest while walking home from shops. However, despite that, I usually felt very safe in my house, staying with 4 big dogs and all. Nothing would ever really happen since most of my neighbors were my dad's friends who were all in the army. For some reason it gives this odd sense of safety, cause who would be stupid enough to try and break in the area like that. Oddly enough, during that particular summer, couple of break-ins happened on my street, but my parents still decided to leave me home alone, reassuring me I have nothing to worry cause I have my dogs and our house is surrounded by a big fence. My fence has little spikes on top, so it's almost impossible to jump across it without hurting yourself. So, first couple of days were fine. Nothing weird happened except some thuds I heard in my garden, but thought nothing of it since usually it was just martins causing some mischief in my mum's flowers. It would happen so often that even my dogs would ignore it at that point. 2 days passed and I finally have to leave for shops but do loads of stuff to do throughout the day. I had to go in the evening when it was getting slightly dark outside. Very smart of me, I know. So I went shops, got my stuff and would walk back home through my usual path. People would usually walk their dogs there, so it was quite busy in the evening cause it was something in between a park and a forest. So I was just casually walking, minding my own business, texting someone on my phone when I noticed that some guy I passed suddenly stood up from the bench and started walking behind me, but again thought maybe it's someone from my neighborhood that I don't recognize and he's just walking in the same direction as me. So I exit the forest into a normal road where houses start. I live right at the end of it. Guy's still walking behind me. I still thinks maybe he lives in one of these houses, but nope. I get to the last junction where my house is. Guy is still behind me, and at this point I know he's not of my neighbors, so my blood runs cold. Luckily, my neighbor who lives to the left of my house was outside watering his plants, spotted me as I was walking by and started talking to me. He knew my parents are out of town and was clearly concerned why I looked so stressed. So, the guy who was walking behind me immediately noticed it and just started running away again towards the forest, which ultimately gave me creeps. He was clearly following me to my house. I called my parents to tell them that it happened, but again, they told me I have nothing to worry about, our neighborhood is safe, I was my dogs with me and so on, so I try to calm down and go on with my things as usual. So for some more context, whenever my parents are out of town, I sleep in their bedroom downstairs, since I don't want my dogs to walk the stairs in the dark and possibly hurting themselves. That night as usual I was laying in bed, reading a book, my dogs already soundly sleeping in bed with me. I suppose they could sense I was distressed because they usually sleep on the floor around the bed. I heard a thud coming from outside. Like a little thud on the window in the room next to mine. Again, thought it's just Martin's, but this one time my dogs started growling at the window in my bedroom. Couple seconds of silence, another thud, this time on window in my bedroom. That already made me panic, but I tried to stay calm nonetheless. However, the third got louder, each coming from windows on the ground floor. Someone was banging on every window of my house, making my dogs go absolute apeshit, running around the house wherever the bangs were coming from. At that point I was in tears, knowing exactly what's happening, so I got out of my bedroom and walked to the center of my house. The house has an open plan, so all rooms, where I can see the main door. And here's the thing, my main door has a window in it so you can see inside, so I sat down in the darkness, couple feet away from the door, waiting what's going to happen, hoping and praying that someone will get scared of my dogs barking. But nope, wasn't this lucky. First, I see my dogs rushing to the door, barking at it before there's anything there, but then I see a black silhouette outside my main door peeking inside and then banging on the little window as I'm sitting there helpless. I moved out of sight, hiding under my table, got my phone out as I'm still hearing that man trying to break the glass. I called my dad, barely being able to breathe, didn't pick up from me. Right. It was like 2 a.m. and they were on holidays. I tried 2 times more until my mom picked up, very confused why I'm calling in the middle of the night. I managed to spit out, "Someone is trying to break in." I don't know what to do. At that point, the man was trying to open the door, banging with his whole body on the frame to the point where my mom could hear it on the call. My dad was frantically trying to call everyone who could come and help me, his brother, my neighbors, my grandma. Everyone was put in a full mobility at that very moment to come here as fast as they could. My neighbors, the same one who spoke to me earlier that day, was the first one to come outside and scare the guy away. He rushed to my back garden, but I was still too afraid to open the main door despite the fact I could see the neighbor standing in front of it. I knew that man was still on my property, but back of the garden was pitch black and my neighbor didn't want to risk going there on his own and getting potentially knocked out with something heavy. 10 minutes later, my uncle, aunt and grandma pull up to my house and I can see them all outside. My uncle had a key, so he opened the door, letting my dogs outside so they could chase after the intruder. My dogs are hunting dogs, so they're not cute little puppies for strangers. My uncle and neighbor went in the backyard with torches, accompanied by my dogs, to check every corner too and make sure it's safe now. I will never forget how my grandma and my aunt approached me when I was clinging onto the chair, absolutely in tears, as my mom was trying to figure out what's happening on the call. The man escaped through the back of the garden into my other neighbor's garden, I'm guessing trying to get away from my dogs, but he was finally gone. He did manage to damage the little window in my main door. The glass was already slightly cracked. Door itself got loose on the door hinges. I don't want to think about what could have happened if they didn't get to my house that quickly. A man broke into my home but didn't take anything. Around 10 years ago I had graduated from high school and was home alone while my family was at work and school. I was sitting in bed reading a book when I heard a door downstairs being closed. I knew it wasn't one of my parents or siblings because I didn't hear their car pulling into the driveway. Then I heard a man ask if anyone was home. I got out of bed and locked my bedroom door and stayed on the other side holding onto a baseball bat as the man climbed up the stairs. I could hear him stop outside of my door because the floor was really creaky and he twisted my doorknob. When he found out the door was locked, he went down the hallway and down the other set of stairs and he left at some point. I didn't leave my room until my parents came home. I thought they would be screaming about missing items or something, but there was nothing missing and no sign of a break-in. When I told my mom about the men, she said it was just a man who came to check the AC. This kind of makes sense as to how the men got inside, but I thought it was weird she didn't warn me before and told him where she hid the key. Usually if someone was coming over, she let me know and I had to meet them at the door and stay with them if they needed help. She had never left me home alone with a man before, though she had known this guy for years. There was also nothing wrong with the AC, and the thermostat was downstairs on the opposite side of the house. I also think it's strange he tried to enter my bedroom. The AC in the house never reached my room, so I had a large fan. It had been that way for years and my parents didn't care, so I know he wasn't there for that reason. They really wanted to come inside my house. This happened late last summer. I'm 28, female, and I live in a house with my husband. We live in a very large city, on a street with row homes, and my house is on the end of the block. It's very common for us to have door-to-door solicitors where I live. My husband recently got a new job, and as part of his training he needed to fly to Texas and stay for 2 weeks at the company corporate training center. I wasn't thrilled with the idea of being home alone for 2 weeks, but I decided that it was time to put on my big girl panties and get over it. How bad could it be? I can watch all the shows my husband hates watching, cook the food he doesn't like to eat. It would be fine. He leaves for his work trip and I continue on with my regular routine. I work part-time, about 20 hours a week, so I spent a lot of time at home binge watching TV and cleaning the house. One day I'm sitting on the couch and I hear a knock at my door, and assume it's the delivery person leaving a package. I wait to hear the glass storm door close, indicating the delivery driver has left, and hear nothing. Then another knock. I am kind of antisocial, so I didn't feel like dealing with any solicitors. I ignore the person and keep watching TV. I hear another knock. I pause the show and get up to peek out our front window. There's a man at my front door that I don't recognize. So I don't open the door for him. I see him kind of throw up his hands in frustration and then leave. I am creeped out by it, but don't think of it again for a few more days. I come home from work a few days later and start getting to work cooking something for dinner. I am in the middle of washing some dishes when I hear a knock at the door again. I go to peek out the blinds and see the men from a few days before, with another guy. Just to paint a picture for you, the first man, the one who has now been there twice, is a huge guy. Honestly, he looks almost exactly like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He's huge, muscular, tall, and he's holding a clipboard. The guy with him is a skinnier black guy. Not very tall, but taller than I am. I'm 5 feet 6 inches. The guy holding the clipboard knocks again. I open the main door to the house. The glass door is still locked, and look at them. Can I help you? Yeah, we are here to set up your security system. We are from large national security company. I own my house. I bought it before my husband and I met, and we didn't have a security system installed. I hadn't set up an appointment with anyone. I'm pretty sure you have the wrong house. I haven't set up an appointment with anyone. I tell them, your husband probably made the appointment and forgot to tell you. My husband and I never make any major decisions about stuff like this without talking to each other first. I don't think so, I say to him. He holds out his clipboard to show me that he has my address filled in on this form, and he says I can check it out. For some reason I unlock the glass door to take a look at it. Maybe my husband really did forget to tell me they were coming. He is away for 2 weeks. Maybe he wanted to try and make me feel safer by getting an alarm installed. The form looks pretty generic. It doesn't have either of our names on it. We just have to come inside and check for weak points, so we can find out where to install the sensors. It won't take long, says The Rock. His partner, who hasn't spoken yet, nods in agreement. Well, I'm home by myself right now. Because my husband is at work, so I don't really feel comfortable having you inside. I tell them, we're really from large national security company, says Skinny. He holds out his name badge. I could print out a name badge that says I'm the Pope, but that doesn't mean anything, I reply, sarcastically. They look annoyed now. The Rock starts motioning like he's going to try to come in the door, so I tell them I'm sorry, but I'm canceling their services and to leave. The Rock seems mad, starts pushing against the door that I have halfway open and is looking down at me like he's going to stomp on me. We really need to come inside and take care of this now, he says, looking past me into my living room. By now I'm really mad that they're being so persistent about getting in, when I've already told them no, so I tell them to leave and I'll reschedule my appointment for a different day. I shut the door in their faces and lock it, waiting for them to leave. They stand there for a few minutes before walking away. I wanted to see what car they got in, but they left on foot and started walking down the block. Once I was sure they had gone, I texted my husband and he said he had no idea who they were. I immediately Google the phone number for large national security company and explain to the woman on the line what happened. She tells me that the men weren't from her company and she had no record on file that I've ever made any appointments with them. Now I'm creeped the fuck out and she suggests I go make a police statement. I went to talk to the police and they said that they don't know what they can really do, since I don't have any information about the men. I tell them I'm going to be home alone for at least another week and it would make me feel better if they could drive around my neighborhood a few times a day just to keep an eye out for them. They agree to do so, and I go home. I made sure I had every window and door locked and tried to forget about it. The following week, I go out to lunch with my mom somewhere in the city. We come back to my house to hang out for a bit and my next-door neighbor is outside. My mom hasn't met her yet. So I introduce them and we are standing outside of my house chatting when a car pulls up. It's a plain, non-marked regular old car. A woman walks up the steps and asks which one of you lives at 123 any street. I do. I tell her. She says, "Hi, I'm from large national security company. My partner was here a few days ago to do an installation but you wouldn't let him in." I looked embarrassed and started laughing. Oh my God. I feel like such an idiot. I actually filed a report with the police about them because I was really nervous. I'm sure you understand, being home alone, being a woman, strange men at the door. She looks furious. Are you fucking kidding me? She screams. You're ridiculous. I'm leaving. She runs back to her car, slams on the gas and screeches her way out of the neighborhood. To this day, I have no idea who these people were, what they wanted, or why she was so pissed. All I know is that neither my husband or I called them and they definitely don't work for the company they claim to. And now we have a security system,